High King
This is
Zeltharon
Nebula.
sat upon
The
his
invasion
crystalline
commences
throne,
now.
his four
All
eyes
forces,
gleaming with
obey without
anticipation
question.
as the holographic display before him rotated slowly, showing a small blue world orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. His scaled fingers drummed against the armrest, creating a rhythmic clicking that echoed through the vast chamber. This Earth, he hissed, his voice carrying the weight of authority that had conquered 47 star systems. My scouts report it is rich in water and minerals. The dominant species barely reaches beyond their own moon. They are primitive, divided, squabbling among themselves like younglings. Commander Vexthal, his most decorated military officer, stood at attention. Your Majesty, our intelligence suggests they possess nuclear weapons, but their delivery systems are crude. They have no energy shields, no antimatter drives, no quantum communications. By our estimates, they are at least 3 centuries behind our technology. Zeltharon's mandibles clicked in what passed for a smile among his kind. Then we shall take this world as easily as we took the others. Prepare the Royal Conquest Fleet. I want 500 warships, the pride of the Vathrock Empire. Make an example of this Earth. Let the galaxy know that when the king desires a world, it becomes his. General Marcus Wellington stared at the radar screens with growing disbelief. Around him, dozens of Air Force personnel worked frantically, their voices a controlled chaos of military efficiency. Sir, we're now tracking over 500 objects, Lieutenant Jessica Martinez reported, her voice tight. They've achieved stable orbit. Various sizes, but the largest are approximately 3 kilometers long. Any communication attempts? Wellington asked, though he already knew the answer. Negative, sir. They're broadcasting what our linguists believe is a surrender demand on multiple frequencies. We've got Dr. Patterson working on translation now. An older man in civilian clothes rushed into the command center, tablet in hand. General, I've got a preliminary translation. It's not good. They're demanding unconditional surrender within 24 hours or they'll begin pacification protocols. They claim to represent the Vathrock Empire and consider Earth a conquered territory. Wellington's jaw tightened. Get me the President. And someone get me Admiral Rodriguez at Space Command. These sons of bitches picked the wrong planet. President Jennifer Hartman sat at the head of the table, surrounded by her Joint Chiefs, the heads of NASA, Space Force, and her national security team. On screens around the room, the leaders of China, Russia, the European Union, India, and a dozen other nations watched intently. Ladies and gentlemen, Hartman began, her southern accent sharpening with determination, 6 hours ago, we were a divided world. We had our differences, our conflicts, our petty grievances. As of now, those are over. Because right now, there are 500 alien warships in orbit, and they think we're going to roll over. She stood, placing her palms on the table. They don't know who we are. They don't know what humanity is capable of when we're pushed. They think because we haven't left our solar system yet, we're primitives. They're about to learn that the most dangerous species in the universe is one that's been fighting itself for 10,000 years. The Russian president, Dmitry Volkov, nodded grimly on screen. President Hartman, Russia stands with Earth. Our missile systems are being retargeted as we speak. One by one, every nation pledged their military forces to a unified Earth defense. Commander Vexthal watched his tactical display with satisfaction as his fleet moved into attack formation. Begin with their military installations, he ordered. Washington, Moscow, Beijing, London. Destroy their centers of power and they will. His words died as alarms shrieked across the bridge. Commander. Multiple launches detected from the surface. Thousands of missiles. Impossible. Their primitive rockets cannot. The display lit up like a festival of death. From silos across America, Russia, China, Europe, and a dozen other nations, ICBMs streaked upward. But these weren't the missiles the Vathrock scouts had reported. In the months since detecting the first alien probe, humanity had worked in secret, retrofitting every nuclear weapon with enhanced boosters, improved guidance systems, and one thing the aliens never expected, sheer overwhelming numbers. The first wave struck the VA-Throck fleet like a hammer. Nuclear fireballs bloomed in space, each one catching shields designed for energy weapons but unprepared for crude, brute-force atomic explosions at point-blank range. Shields failing on decks 7 through 12. Hull breaches across the fleet, an officer screamed. Vexthal watched in horror as 40 ships disappeared from his display in the first 30 seconds. As the VA-Throck fleet reeled from the nuclear assault, Space Force Commander Admiral James Rodriguez gave his next order from the secret orbital platform humanity had been building in the dark side of the moon. All railgun batteries, fire at will. The aliens had been watching Earth's cities, its obvious military bases, its public space programs. They hadn't noticed the mining operations, the commercial satellites, the research stations. They hadn't realized that a species that had spent millennia perfecting the art of killing each other had learned to hide their weapons very, very well. Tungsten rods, accelerated to a fraction of light speed, tore through the alien formation. No shields, no armor could stop simple kinetic energy delivered with sufficient velocity. The railgun platforms, positioned throughout Earth's orbital space and on the lunar surface, fired continuously. More alien ships broke apart, their advanced technology useless against weapons that were, fundamentally, just throwing rocks really, really hard. High King Zeltheron watched his fleet's destruction from his throne world, light years away. In 20 minutes, humanity had reduced his royal conquest fleet from 500 ships to less than 70. Retreat, he finally screamed. Full retreat. The surviving VA-Throck vessels jumped to hyperspace, fleeing the primitive world that had just taught the galaxy a terrible lesson. President Hartman stood before the United Nations Assembly, the entire world watching. Today, humanity stood together for the first time in our history, she said. Not as Americans, Russians, Chinese, or any single nation, but as one species. One people. Let this message reach the stars: Earth is not divided. Earth is not weak. And Earth will never surrender. In orbit, the debris of the VA-Throck fleet served as a warning. The humans were dangerous not because they were advanced, but because they had spent their entire existence perfecting warfare. And they had only just begun to reach for the stars.